Now, Britons have reacted with fury after the Union Jack appeared to have been removed by French officials celebrating the anniversary of D-Day, 80 years, in a French town in Normandy. Pictures from previous years actually show the bunting depicting all of the nations involved in the Allied response to the Nazis, obviously occupying France, in the town of Caratan. Now the Union flag isn't present. It isn't there anymore. Now, I'm asking the question, do you think this is a post-Brexit snub? Because it's been in there in years gone by. The King's going to be there in Normandy. He's announced, despite, being ill and fighting cancer, he has made the decision to go there. I wonder, from these pictures...
Is that all the other flags as of today?
So the American flag is on there, and the Canadian flag is on there too.
It's a clear snub. What's their excuse? What's their response?
We haven't, as far as I'm aware, we haven't heard of it.
Look, one thing I know for sure is that Europe, and including the French, they hate the UK. They hate our decision to leave the European Union. They can't believe we've left their gravy train club, and they think we're a bunch of lager-louts.
But do you not think that...
better than us.
Do you not think, though, that they would look at the fact that this is commemorations of the rescue, the liberation of their nation by selfless British men and women?
I think we're so far past the memory of that they now realise that they actually hate everything we stand for, and they'll do everything within their power to get rid of every last remnant that's been...
I thought they would be happier with us as well, because a lot of the asylum seekers are now coming to England that they didn't want in France.
£500 million.
Yeah, they should be more grateful. So I don't know why they hate us even more than ever now.
They can afford to give everyone in France a Union flag with the amount of money that we've
They should be giving us a pat on the back, thanks to all the money, and we're not even doing much for it.
Which, by the way, Darren, good point about the £500 million, because The Sun, I've mentioned it every week, they did a great expose about French border patrol, instead of stopping dinghies crossing the channel, going off to Working Men's Club and sinking shots. And actually, Sir Keir Starmer's plan about stopping the boats, which relies on closer relations with the European Union, is doomed before it even begins, because they don't want to work with us. As I said, they hate us. They'd rather migrants come to the UK because it affects everything that's great about us, quite frankly. And they're not inclined to help us, so it's no surprise that They
don't mind our money, though. Like a lot of countries, they hate us, but they're taking a lot of money for doing nothing.
But don't forget, Macron's got an election coming up, and for him, he has to be seen to not be allowing migrants into the country, so it suits him to let them come. It suits him to let the French forget that we even exist. And I think that's what...
Liz Truss got into a lot of hot water, Benjamin, because she had said it's debatable whether the state of France is an ally or an enemy, and she got a lot of a stick for that, essentially. I mean, do you think this is a sign of a friendly neighbour?
I mean, I couldn't care less about what's on some bunting in a town that most people haven't heard of, and I suspect it's not some grand statement.
That's terrible.
Well, I really don't.
Why remove the Union flag and
I don't think you should
remove the United States flag or the Canadian flag?
Obviously, well, as a Canadian family of mine, I'm happy to have that there, but you shouldn't remove the Union flag, obviously, but I really don't think it's some grand reflection from some, village 70-odd years later. But look, the question about Liz Truss, the idea that the way that you sit here and constantly attack France and then go, oh, why don't they like us? Well, maybe it's because of that, little Englander, small-minded attitude to just constantly bash your neighbours. France is our closest neighbour geographically and one of our most essential neighbours on the world stage.
Well,
we agree on the vast majority of things.
A lot of French are very snobby, though, and think they're better than British people. They've often been like that. When I visited France, I haven't felt welcome.
I think a lot of countries feel that way about the British, quite frankly. We might need a dose of self-awareness on how we behave in that way. But look, the idea that you somehow are being a patriot by attacking countries that are overwhelmingly allied to our interests and supportive of our conclusions, it's just farcical.
Allied to our interests. They allow migrants, and there will be Islamists among them, to come to our shores uninhibited and arrive here when we have asked for their participation and help in doing this. We've given them £500 million. They also, throughout the EU negotiations, basically treat us like we were an enemy state that had just lost a war.
Because we chose that.
And thirdly...
No, hang on.
Thirdly...
You just said during EU negotiations they treated us badly. We chose to make ourselves
we also
a third
are their
party.
biggest export
That was a
market.
legitimate democratic decision, but we chose to be against the club for which France is central to. So why would you expect them to be kind?
Because they hadn't just beaten us in a war. No, it's not. They hadn't just beaten us in a war, right? This was a decision by the British people to say, we are going to leave your club, but we still want to be friends with you. And the French said, up yours de laws, basically, and gave us 2 fingers.
If I left and went to Talk TV, God rest its soul, I don't think anyone watched it. It used to be a TV channel, and if I went there, you would obviously, you know, treat me as an outsider. You would compete aggressively. That's what happens, and that's what the UK did with the EU. So I think it's childish to be surprised by that behaviour.
But if you had liberated me from a wall...
From Talk TV.
From a wall, would I... And I removed the recognition that you had received for helping me in that war, you would be put out by that. You would say, hang on a minute, you know, I gave blood, sweat and tears.
I mean, can you imagine in the UK if we actually had D-Day celebrations without the French flag where there were multi-country flags? Can you imagine that scenario?
There'd be an uproar.
Yeah.
There'd be all... Because they love to
But would
protest.
you
There'd be
be
riots in
would
the
you be
UK if we did that.
I think it's puerile. It's silly to take out the Union flag, assuming that it was done intentionally and not a mistake.
Well, how could they just innocently forget that one flag?
It's quite a nice flag.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it's silly, but the idea that this is another excuse to bash the French, to bash one of our most essential allies, a country for which, on the vast majority of global decisions, it takes the same conclusion and backs up Great Britain, I think it's a mistake for that. You know, we know that we live in a world where the West is struggling to assert its position in a way that it hasn't for decades. You know, there is a new axis of China, Iran and Russia. And so when we face that threat, and it is a threat, it's a threat that we directly see on our shores, as you just referenced, the idea that we then make mountains out of molehills with France or with Germany or with Spain is not constructive.
We should try and be allies.
When the Houthi rebels were firing rockets at British ships, the French decided to do nothing. There's a reason the AUKUS deal is there between America, the United Kingdom, the United States, and actually to say to the likes of the French, you are allying yourself with wrong uns, we're going to stand tall in the world together.
Do you not feel more of an ally to the United States as opposed to Europe? Because I do. I see America as our friends and the European Union as their own...
No, actually, I think we should stand up to America a bit more because they're not showing the loyalty to us that we have to them.
If Trump becomes the president
I actually
again.
think we pay far too much attention to domestic US politics when actually the decisions of places like France and Germany have a bigger effect on us.
Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.